Imagine this. You're sitting at home in the United States, scrolling through your phone, when suddenly breaking news. NASA has detected something unimaginable. A needle, traveling at the speed of light, is heading straight toward Earth. What happens next will change humanity forever. The discovery, it all begins quietly, on a normal Tuesday morning. Across the United States, people are going about their daily lives commuting to work. Kids waiting for the school bus, traders opening the stock market in New York. But in a control room deep inside NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, scientists are staring at their monitors in disbelief. At first, it looks like a glitch, a data blip. But as the readings stabilize, they realize this is no mistake. Something unbelievably small, but unbelievably fast, so racing across space. The system identifies it as metallic, needle-shaped, and traveling at nearly the speed of light. That's about 670 million miles per hour. Nothing man-made has ever moved this fast. Not even the particles inside the Large Hadron Collider come close in scale. This is something different. One scientist gasps. Another starts running calculations. If the trajectory holds, the object will collide with Earth in less than an hour. But what could a single needle do? After all, it's just a tiny sliver of metal, smaller than a pencil, smaller than a missile. Barely even visible to the human eye if it were lying on a table. Surely it couldn't matter. But here's the terrifying truth. At the speed of light, even the smallest object carries unimaginable energy. Think of it this way. If you throw a baseball at someone, it might sting. If you shoot a bullet, it's deadly. Now imagine all that condensed into a needle, moving almost infinitely faster than anything you've ever seen. At this speed, the needle's impact would release more energy than every single nuclear weapon on Earth combined. News spreads fast. Within minutes, major networks like CNN and Fox are running breaking banners. Unknown object on collision course with Earth. Panic ripples across the US social media, explodes with hashtags. Hashtag Lightspeed Needle. Hashtag End of the World. Hashtag NASA Warning. In New York, people stare up at the skies even though the object is far too small to see. In Washington, D.C., the president is rushed to a secure bunker while advisors scramble to prepare a national address. But there's no missile defense system that can stop this. No weapon. No shield. Nothing humanity has ever built is designed to intercept an object traveling at light speed. In the control room, a single truth becomes clear. This will not just be another news cycle. This will be the moment that defines the future of the planet. And somewhere in America, maybe in your own city, you stop scrolling your phone. Look up at the screen and realize you're living through the most extraordinary and terrifying event in human history. The question is no longer if the needle will hit. It's what happens when it does. The impact, the countdown begins. Every clock across the world is synchronized to a single moment, the time of impact. In the United States, people are glued to their televisions and phones, watching live feeds of scientists giving grave updates. Some cities fall silent. Churches fill with people praying, while in others, chaos takes over. Highways clog with traffic as families try to flee, though no one really knows where safety lies. And then, it happens. The needle enters Earth's atmosphere. For a fraction of a second, it glows like a shooting star. But this is no meteor, no harmless streak of light. Traveling at the speed of light, the needle compresses the air in front of it into an unimaginable wave of energy. In less than a blink, the friction generates temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. The sky over the impact zone ignites in a blinding flash. The needle strikes the ground. At that exact moment, all the rules of normal life collapse. The collision unleashes energy equal to billions of megatons of TNT. For perspective, the most powerful nuclear bomb ever tested, the Soviet Tsar Bombu, was 50 megatons. This impact, tens of millions of times stronger. The Earth shakes violently. Skyscrapers in New York and Chicago sway like toys in the hands of a child. Bridges buckle. Windows shatter in cities hundreds, even thousands of miles away. A shockwave erupts, racing outward faster than sound. In the American heartland, people who had just stepped outside to see what was happening are thrown to the ground by the blast. Houses collapse, power grids fail. Cell towers topple, cutting off communication as panic spreads like wildfire. In California, the shaking is so intense that parts of the San Andreas Fault rupture, adding earthquakes to the chaos. Then comes the fireball. A globe of plasma expands outward, vaporizing everything in its path. Entire forests vanish in an instant. Rivers boil. Highways melt like plastic in a furnace. In the skies, birds fall like raindrops. Commercial planes lose control as shockwaves rip through the atmosphere. For thousands of miles around, nothing recognizable is left. But the devastation doesn't stop there. The needle's light-speed impact sends seismic energy through the entire planet. Within minutes, countries around the world feel the ground tremble. In Washington, the White House bunker shakes as though the earth itself is groaning in pain. In Los Angeles, people run for the ocean as towering waves rise along the coastlines. In Miami, storm surges push inland as the sea reacts violently to the shift in Earth's crust. Satellite feeds go black. For those still watching, the last thing they see is a bright, expanding scar where the needle made contact an impact crater unlike anything in human history. Bigger than the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. This event marks a new chapter. Not just a disaster, but a cataclysm. And yet, amid the terror and destruction, one haunting question lingers. If a tiny needle could unleash this kind of devastation, what happens next? How does humanity even begin to survive the aftershocks of such an impossible event? The aftermath, the first minutes after the impact, are pure chaos. Across the United States, emergency systems blare with warnings, but most lines of communication are already down. People stumble from the wreckage of their homes, coughing through clouds of dust and ash. The sun, once blazing in the sky, fades behind a wall of darkness rising into the atmosphere. Satellite footage, what little remains, shows the terrifying scale. A crater so large it dwarfs cities. With molten rock glowing red at its core, round it stretches a wasteland where once there had been farmland, forests, highways, entire communities. Everything within hundreds of miles is gone. In New York City, survivors climb through the debris of fallen skyscrapers. Streets are littered with shattered glass, overturned cars, and fires raging out of control. In Washington, D.C., the Capitol is in ruins, its dome cracked and blackened. The president, broadcasting from a secure location, dresses a shaken nation. This is unlike anything humanity has ever faced. We will endure. We will survive. America will not fall. But even the strongest words cannot hide the tremor in his voice. As night falls, the true scale of the disaster becomes clearer. The atmosphere is filled with dust and vaporized rock. Ash clouds spread rapidly across the continent, blotting out the stars. The temperature begins to drop. In Texas, where hours ago people were sweating under the September sun, now a sudden chill creeps in. Scientists warn this could mark the beginning of a volcanic winter effect, where the sunlight blocked by ash could plunge Earth into darkness for months, even years. Hospitals overflow with the injured burn victims. People with crushed limbs, lungs filled with smoke. But power outages cripple medical care. In some towns, doctors perform surgeries by flashlight. In others, the only hope for survival is improvisation and prayer. Across the nation, survivors tell haunting stories. A family in Kansas describes how the ground buckled beneath them, throwing their house into splinters. In Chicago, a man recounts seeing a wave of shattered glass sweep through the streets like a deadly tide. In Florida, fishermen watch in horror as their boats are tossed inland by sudden surges. But amid the terror, there are also stories of resilience. Firefighters in Los Angeles form human chains to pull survivors from collapsed buildings. Volunteers in rural towns organize shelters, sharing food and blankets with strangers. The U.S. military mobilizes across states, airlifting supplies, evacuating survivors, and setting up field hospitals and stadiums. Still, the shadow of fear looms. Scientists confirm that the shockwaves have destabilized parts of Earth's crust. More earthquakes are expected. Tsunamis ripple through the Atlantic and Pacific, devastating coastal regions. Communication with Europe and Asia is patchy, but reports suggest global destruction on a scale unseen since the age of the dinosaurs. And yet, in living rooms, makeshift shelters, and community halls across America, people cling to a single question: is this survivable? Because while the first day was fire and chaos, the true challenge is just beginning. Humanity is about to face the long-term consequences of a needle traveling at the speed of light. And survival will demand everything we have. The global consequences while the United States reels from the immediate devastation. The effects of the needle's collision ripple across the planet. Satellite images show massive shockwaves emanating from the impact zone, triggering earthquakes and volcanic activity on every continent. In Japan, citizens brace as tsunamis strike the eastern coast. Across Europe, seismographs spike, signaling tremors and minor quakes. The Earth itself seems to shudder from the energy unleashed by a tiny object moving at light speed. Scientists explain that the needle's collision has transferred energy equivalent to millions of megatons of TNT. This energy not only devastated the local impact zone, but has altered the Earth's crust, creating new fault lines and increasing the risk of aftershocks worldwide. In South America, the Andes experience tremors that ignite landslides, burying villages and cutting off roads. Africa, seemingly far from the impact, experiences unexpected seismic shifts and localized volcanic activity. Climate scientists raise alarms. The enormous amount of debris thrown into the atmosphere blocks sunlight, triggering an abrupt drop in global temperatures. Crops in the Midwest, already devastated, will not recover for months, creating a looming food crisis. In Europe, frost threatens vineyards and farmlands, and scientists warn that this sudden needle winter could last for years if ash and dust remain in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, political leaders around the world scramble to respond. Emergency summits are convened in Geneva and New York, where world powers debate how to distribute aid and maintain order. Nations that once competed now face a common enemy: survival itself. Countries with robust disaster response teams, like Japan, Germany, and Canada, coordinate global relief, sharing satellite data, medical supplies, and temporary shelters. Media across the globe struggles to report as communication networks falter and misinformation spreads. Social media buzzes with theories about the event. Was it a freak cosmic accident? Could it have been an experiment gone wrong? Conspiracy theories ignite as fear escalates. Meanwhile, scientists tirelessly explain the cold truth: a tiny needle, traveling at light speed, contains unimaginable energy, and its impact is a reminder of the fragility of life on Earth. Amid all this, ordinary people adapt in ways that define humanity's resilience. Communities band together, rationing food, sharing knowledge, and assisting the injured. In New York, a group of engineers repairs water pumps to provide clean water to survivors. In rural Kansas, farmers convert barns into emergency shelters. Across the U.S. and beyond, survival becomes a shared purpose, transcending borders, politics, and wealth. But even as humans adapt, nature pushes back. Forests smolder, storms rage, and ocean currents shift unpredictably. Glaciers accelerate in polar regions due to the sudden imbalance in heat distribution. Wildlife faces extinction in many regions, while others migrate in unusual patterns to escape environmental instability. Earth is alive with chaos, and every creature feels the consequences of one tiny object moving at the speed of light. The world has changed in less than an hour, And the question on every mind is no longer whether humanity will survive the impact, but how. Humanity will survive the aftermath. The human story and hope days turn into weeks, and the initial shock of the Needle-S impact slowly gives way to the painstaking work of survival and rebuilding. Across the United States, people emerge from shelters and debris to assess the devastation. Cities lie in ruins, forests have been scorched, and rivers run with ash and mud. Yet, amid the destruction, life refuses to surrender. Communities begin to form networks of aid. In New York, volunteers organize search parties to locate missing survivors, setting up temporary hospitals in subway tunnels and sports arenas. In small towns across the Midwest, families share food, fuel, and shelter, helping each other navigate a landscape forever altered. Engineers, scientists, and emergency responders work tirelessly to restore communication and electricity, knowing that humanity's survival depends on collaboration. Meanwhile, the world outside the U.S. reacts to the global consequences. Nations work together to distribute food and medical supplies to the hardest-hit regions. Airplanes and ships deliver relief, while international scientists study the long-term effects of the ash and debris cloud that now shrouds the Earth. Governments that once competed for influence now cooperate to mitigate disaster. It is a rare, humbling reminder of the shared fragility of life on this planet. Children, despite the fear and trauma, play in makeshift schools built from debris, laughing and learning in the shadow of catastrophe. In hospitals, doctors treat burn victims and injured survivors while inspiring hope that humanity can endure almost anything. Stories of heroism and compassion flood social media and news channels, reminding people that even in moments of unimaginable devastation, courage, creativity, and kindness prevail. Scientists continue to monitor the Earth, predicting months or even years of unusual climate patterns. Despite the threat, humanity adapts. Crops are replanted, clean energy sources are restored, and people learn to navigate a world with unpredictable weather, shifting landscapes, and the lingering reminders of what one tiny object traveling at the speed of light can do. Every action is a testament to resilience, problem-solving, and hope. And so, as the dust begins to settle and the world adjusts to a new reality, one universal truth becomes clear. Humanity is fragile, yes, but capable of extraordinary endurance. What began as an impossible "what if" scenario, a tiny needle striking the Earth at light speed, has now become a story of survival, adaptation, and perseverance. It is a story that reminds us how precious life is, how unpredictable the universe can be, and how, even in the darkest moments, humans find ways to shine. The question that began as a curiosity, what would happen if a needle hit Earth at light speed, now becomes a lesson for the future. The universe is full of unimaginable forces. And while we may not control them, we can control how we respond. The resilience, ingenuity, and courage of humanity define not just survival, but the enduring spirit that makes Earth worth protecting.